Welcome to another Lifeline Health Lecture. This time we are going to speak about the breath of life, the air. This is also a very amazing natural remedy. And you know, it's amazing. Most of us, we never think about the air because it's so natural to us to breathe and breathe out, and we hardly ever think about air. I just had a very interesting experience not too long ago. I was driving with somebody who took me to a store to do a little bit of shopping, and when I got into that car, he had one of these big green, these kind of like a Christmas tree formed things that smell very strongly. He had one on the hanging on the mirror and another one lower down, and the whole car smelled of that thing. And so I asked him, listen, what do you think? Do you think we need chemicals to live, or we need air to breathe in? And he thought a little bit, and he said, you know, I have never thought about that. You're right, we need oxygen. We can't live on chemicals. So why do we keep all these chemicals in our homes, in our offices, in our cars, wherever? We try to produce a good smelling air, but not a better air. And all these things are chemicals that we are breathing in. Air fresheners, they call them. But they don't really make the air fresh. They mess the air up. They make it even worse than what it is already. So if you have a bad smelling car or a bad smelling office or a bad smelling home, well, at least you know that I think I need some oxygen in here because it smells in here. But we don't think that way. We just hang out these trees in the cars or in the home, in the bathroom. We have these, I don't even know what these things are called, that smell all the time, in the living room and the offices. Sometimes over the door frame or anywhere on the wall, you have these things there, these electronic things there that every what do I know, 2 minutes or so, they spit out like, and they spit out that fume that comes out of there, a terrible thing. The other day I went to a home and visited some people, and my wife had entered first, and she turned around when I was coming in through the door, and then she said, oh, look, right over the door, you got one up there. We had just been talking about it, and I turned around and I looked at that thing and spit right into my face. Well, I hate these things, but friends, that's no way to treat yourself, because there are already enough toxins and chemicals in the air. We don't have to make it worse than what it is. And let me tell you, right now, there is no healthy air anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. You can even go to the North Pole or to the South Pole. You still have contamination in the air. And there's this famous dioxin, which is probably the worst cancerogenic substance that we know right now, that is constantly in the air everywhere. So we don't want to add to these chemicals. Anywhere where you're breathing in, even if you're out in the country, you're still probably breathing in 100, 250 different chemicals that are in the air. And if you are in cities like New York or Washington or Los Angeles or whatever, it's even worse. Over there, you probably be inhaling, let's say, 300 or 400 different chemicals. So it's really a sad situation what's going on with our air right now, and we really need to pay some attention to it, because without air we can't make it very long. And in the 1800s, there were three Frenchmen, and they wanted to break the record of altitude, and so they built these hot air balloon. Now, hot air, you have the flame here on the bottom with like a gas flame, and that heats the air up in there. And of course, hot air is lighter than cold air, so the cold air around the hot air will press it up, and that's how they start to float then. And they got up to an altitude of 22,000 feet, or 28,000 feet rather. And the sad story is that only one of them came back alive. The other two suffocated up there because they didn't know that there was not enough oxygen up there. So we can live for weeks without food, and we can live for days without water, but we can only live for a few minutes without air. So that's really a very, very important substance, and we need to pay some attention to it, and we need to make sure that we get enough oxygen, because I always, I've told you already before, I like to put a drop of blood from the fingertip under electronic microscope and then project the image of the blood cells onto a big TV screen, and I see that probably 99% of all people have lack of oxygen in their blood, and that's a very serious situation there, because the lack of oxygen can produce a lot of health problems, and especially it can produce cancer, which is not so good. And there was a physician in Germany, I believe it was in 1936 or 38, that he got the Nobel Prize for figuring out the cause of cancer. And he said that the cells, if our individual body cells get less than 60% of the oxygen that they need, then they cannot oxidize the glucose, and they will switch over to a fermentation process. And in this fermentation process, only a very, very, very little amount of energy is produced, and it's not enough to maintain the DNA functioning in the cell, and then the cell will reproduce without any control, and that is the beginning of a tumor, and it is the beginning of a cancer. So that we get enough oxygen is quite important. Now, when we look out there at the air, we usually think about oxygen. We think that the air that we breathe in is oxygen, but it really isn't. The air out there only contains 21% of oxygen. 78% is nitrogen. And then we are missing there, 1%, that would be other gases and water vapor. So only 21% of the air out there is oxygen. And this is really the relationship between oxygen and nitrogen that we need, because if we would live in an environment that is much higher than the content of oxygen in our air, we would probably burn out. We would probably not live very long, because they have these hyperbaric chambers which look like almost like a coffin with a glass window on the top, and you lay down in there, and then they put under pressure pure oxygen in there, and if you stay in there for about an hour or so, once you come out, you feel with a tremendous energy, like you go out to the car parking lot and you feel like carrying the car home instead of sitting inside of it. So you'll get a tremendous amount of energy. And you know, of course, it's not good. We would not live probably very long if we live all the time with these pure oxygen. So we can't do that. But we do need oxygen, and it has a lot to do with our energy. If we don't burn our glucose efficiently in our cells, we will suffer from a lack of energy. So it is very important that we get fresh air and not refreshed air, not with these air fresheners, but we need to get real air that doesn't contain gases, but that contains the necessary amount of oxygen. Now, God or nature, whatever you want to call it, has provided for some purification systems. And that's not these little trees in the car, it's the trees out there in nature. Now the trees out there in nature, and all green plants really, will produce oxygen. And they do that in the photosynthesis. Remember when we spoke about nutrition, I told you that the trees or the green plants use carbon dioxide and they use water to produce a carbohydrate. And what the plants then do is they split the carbon dioxide into C, carbon, which they add to the water molecule, and then we got O2 left over. And the oxygen that we breathe in is O2. So that's what we need to breathe in. Now, these green plants, when they produce carbohydrates, then they will also produce fresh air for us. And they are very important as our air fresheners. God has produced another air freshener, and that's the lightnings. When the lightning happens, these huge discharge of electricity will produce ozone. Ozone is O3. It's 3 atoms of oxygen that are stuck together, but these molecule is not very stable. So it will pretty soon split into O2 and O1, which we call the singlet. Now the singlet is missing an electron, which gives it a very high negative charge. And now this singlet is going out to find where it can steal an electron, and matters that is positive has the extra electron, and so it will steal it there, and this exchange is called the oxidation process. So it will oxidize toxic matters, because everything that is positive is toxic to us because our body charge is negative. So the ozone that's produced by the lightning will clean the air because it will oxidize the toxins that are in the air. Then there is another tool that God uses, and that's running water. The water will also clean the air, and the beach will clean the air. Now, the beach, there we have the actions of a lot of different factors, because we have, for example, here all the trees that are producing oxygen. But also the water cleans the air. You know, most of us believe that the lung of the world, we always say that the lung of the world is the Amazon, where we have these huge tropical rainforests. And of course, a lot of oxygen is produced there, no doubt, but all the other plants on the planet also produce oxygen. But you know that only about 30 or 40% of the oxygen is produced on the continents. Did you know that 60% of the oxygen is produced on the oceans? Now, in the ocean, who would produce oxygen? Because it is produced through the process of of what's it called again? I just said it. Photosynthesis. Thank you. The photosynthesis. That's right. And so the photosynthesis happens in the chlorophyll part, in the green part of the plants. Now, fish don't have no chlorophyll, so who could be producing oxygen in the ocean? Yes, of course, the algae produces it. And so it's really the ocean produces more oxygen than do the continents. And that's very important. And then we have the air pollution. Now, that's what we are doing. God is trying to clean the mess up, and we're trying to mess the air up again. So we have the pollution through industries and cars, where we burn all these fossil fuels that produce a tremendous amount of gases. And by the way, with burning all these fossil fuels, we have already managed to contaminate our planet or atmosphere with a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide. Right now, it's said that we have about 190 ppm of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We should never have passed 140 or 150 ppm. And so right now, our planet Earth is, because of its carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere, it is compared to a person that is like 5 minutes before a heart attack. So we are really in trouble with our planet Earth and with our air. So these pollution produces a lot of gases. It produces acids that make us acidic and sick. It produces dirt and germs and ozone. Now, isn't that interesting that here it says pollution with ozone? We just said that ozone is produced by the lightning and that it's an air cleaner. Yes, it is, but in the amounts it is produced in the industries, if the ozone level becomes too high, it can damage our lungs. So it can become toxic if it is out of range, if it gets too much. Now, the problems that all these things will produce is burning eyes, running nose, headaches, coughing, fatigue, negative emotions. So we can see that there is quite a list here of health problems that can occur when we inhale polluted air. And here we have an example with these cars giving out all these fumes there. This is a visible pollution. But the invisible pollution of our air is even worse than that. And I've mentioned that already. We're probably breathing in at least between 150 and 300 different toxins wherever we are on planet Earth. So it is a very serious condition. And then, of course, all these car and industrial fumes and pollutions that they produce, they will contribute to hay fever and asthma. Now, hay fever, we hardly ever hear this word anymore. People don't talk about it anymore. We just call that plain allergies. So allergies are produced by all these pollution and asthma. And in some cities, especially in Asia, I believe, we have cities where the pollution nowadays is so bad that people even use gas masks to get around in the city. Well, there would probably be a good reason to do the same thing in the most polluted cities here in the United States too, because I used to live about an hour and a half north from New York City, and every time I would drive in the morning to my office, we have a consulting office in Manhattan there, And every time I would drive down there, I would just see these huge amount of smog on top of the city of New York. And then I was always thinking, my goodness, now I have to breathe this in for the next 5, 6, 7, or 8 hours that I'm going to be there in that city. Well, it is terrible. We should really try to stay away from these cities because the contaminations that they produce is absolutely incredible. Let me tell you a little story here too. Because when I do these blood cell analysis or these blood cell demonstration, I can see the toxicity of the blood because it's right in there. You can see it and the effects of the toxicity. And now I had worked for 4 years in the area of Hollywood, Miami, in the southern part of Florida near the beach. We were working only about 2 miles away from the beach. And during these 4 years, I had only done live blood cell demonstrations in this area. And fine, it was absolutely normal what I usually get to see. But then I got an invitation to do a seminar in Washington, D.C. And at that seminar, I had only African people participating, and most of them were Ethiopians. And so I did about a blood demonstration for about 30 or maybe 35 people or so, and I was absolutely amazed about the toxicity of the blood that these people had there. And I couldn't understand it, and so I started to, I don't know the Ethiopian culture too well because I worked in Mozambique in Africa, which is further down to the south. And so I tried to figure out what was it that made these people so toxic, and I couldn't really figure out what it was. And I asked about their nutrition and all kinds of things. I couldn't figure out what it was. But then from there, I was invited to New York to do another seminar there. And I also saw about somewhere between 35 and 40 people over there doing this blood cell demonstration. And now these people there, they were 100% Latin people, South American people, 100%, all of them. And they had the same toxicity as the people that I just saw a couple of weeks before in Washington, D.C. Absolutely toxic and unbelievable toxicity. And so then I concluded that it must be that in the last 4 years that I had not been working in these very contaminated metropolitan areas, that in these last 4 years the toxicity must have increased in such a dramatic way that it looked really scary to me when I looked at it. So I can only recommend you, if you can't afford it in any way or shape or form, get out of the cities, except especially these big metropolitan cities, because these cities are killing you. And there is nothing you can do about it very much, because, I mean, you can't avoid the toxins going into your body, you can't avoid them staying in, but if you are in such an intoxicated environment, it is very difficult to keep the body clean from the inside and to keep it detoxed. Now, we got probably like 5 million or so children right now in the U.S. that suffer asthma and that use all kinds of sprays and medications. When we spoke about asthma, which of course is worsened by all the pollution of the air, but remember when we spoke about water, I told you that asthma in great part is a sign of dehydration. Of course, it is also provoked by, or at least worsened by all this pollution. But let's hydrate these kids and you will see how much better they will get. Now, asthma, allergy, bronchitis, and emphysema, all these things happen nowadays. You will find a lot of people nowadays that suffer from emphysemas, that suffer from lung cancer, and they have never smoked before. Well, if you live in these contaminated cities, it's no wonder when you get, or if you get cancer, lung cancer there. Then there's another thing, the polluted indoor air. The polluted indoor air is also very dangerous to us. And I have been to many churches because I do a lot of health lectures in different churches. And when I get to many churches, just like this one that we see here on this slides here, these churches, they have all the windows closed. Yes, they got beautiful windows there, but you can't open these things. You can't get air into them. And usually when I need to go to a church, and I know it's a little bit older church, I usually try to go there early and see whether I can somehow produce a cross ventilation, like opening a door on this end and on the other side of the church to see whether I can get a little bit of air through there, because I don't like to be in these polluted old air buildings where you don't get no oxygen. And then, of course, you wonder why these people fall asleep in there when somebody speaks. Well, if you don't have no oxygen, lack of oxygen will surely make you sleep. This is another bad situation that we have here, because we have usually very poor ventilation, these big modern buildings. You can't even open the windows there. And so they have these central air conditioning systems. And I really wouldn't want to share the air with everybody else in that big building. I don't know exactly how they work, but I don't think that the air quality is too good. I don't think that all that oxygen that is used up from this air will be replaced. But I would definitely try to avoid to work in a building like that. I would just refuse to do it. I would not go in there and work in there. But also at home, we can produce a lot of problems. If we have an open fireplace, for example, well, if we are oxidizing or burning there the wood, we are producing also carbon dioxide. And these gases, they can come into our living room, and they don't only come into the living room, this fire will also consume oxygen, because you need oxygen for the fire to burn, to oxidize the materials. Another thing that is not very good is these open flames in our homes. And mom loves to keep that gas flame going while she is doing something else, because she doesn't want to turn it on again. So she keeps it going, or while the pot is already boiling over, she still keeps it on full. Well, it's not only that we will waste gas there, but it is that we are contaminating our home with all these gases, and we should keep these flames as low as possible. And if we have the fire going, if we have a gas stove going in our kitchen, then let's keep the window open, something so that we get some good oxygen back into the house. These slides here with these dusty living room and dark and a terrible looking living room, this is a very typical situation that reminds me of my years in the tropics in Latin America. It's very common there that people like to keep all the windows closed and keep the shades down so that the sun won't come in there, because that sun will bleach our furniture, and it should be stay as looking like new. And so we keep the windows closed, we keep the shades closed, and it becomes dusty and muggy in these rooms, and it's really a very contaminated environment. We need to get the shades up and we need to get the sunshine in there so that it will sanitize the air and the carpets and the furniture and everything, kill the germs, and we need to get some good fresh air in there. This is very important in all homes, especially in homes that are in humid areas. The air in the home should always smell like really fresh air, because if it smells bad, you got fungus in there, you got bacteria in there, you're breathing all this stuff in, and you may even have mold in there, which is very, very bad for your lungs. So let's keep the windows open that we get some good air in there. And don't ever go into these areas where you can find these mold here on the wall. I mean, this mold here, when you see it like this, we are not seeing here the mold itself. The mold is growing inside the wall. What we are seeing here are just the flowers of the mold, and the flowers produce spores, and these spores are the seed of the mold, of these fungus. And these seeds, these spores, become airborne, and then we breathe them in, and they are a tremendous health hazard. They can really make us sick. We should never go into these kind of areas where we have this mold, and we should definitely not live in these areas. Now, if you have to use an area like this because, well, I don't know for what kind of reason, but economical reason or whatever, then at least clean it out. And you can also use an ozonator. You can use an ozonator that produces ozone and ozonate the area, and that will kill the fungus and it will kill the spores and everything. There are some commercial ozonators. They might produce up to 20 grams of ozone per hour. Now, when you use an ozonator in these kind of areas, you cannot be in the area, you cannot be in the house, because at these big concentrations of ozone to kill the fungus and everything, ozone becomes very toxic for you. You can damage your lungs. So what you do is you put the ozonator in there, you set it on the time you want it to work, and then you leave the home, close everything, and then after it's shut off, you should wait 20, 30 minutes, and then you can go back in, because in 20 to 30 minutes, the ozone has fallen apart. It has split into O2 and O1. So how can we protect ourselves against the lack of oxygen, of the pollution? Well, of course, one good thing would be to move out into the country. Do not live in the cities. But then we're not all this fortunate. Some of us, we just can't do it. But we can at least go out to the country over a weekend or whatever, especially in the summer. Even if you just take a tent, and it might not be all that expensive then, and go out into the country, or go to the beach if you're near the beach. That's just as good or even better. But let's go out there and let's get some air that is as little polluted as possible. Like I said already, there is no unpolluted air anymore, nowhere on the planet. And then at our homes, let's try to get a cross circulation. Don't only open the window in one room. Keep the doors open and the windows on the other side of the house too, so that the air can flow through there, that we get a good flow of air in there, and that we will have a very good air. Now, you may say, well, that's a good recommendation, but the air outside my home is worse than inside the home, because I live next to a highway or a street with a lot of traffic. Well, let me tell you something. Your air is never better than the air outside. It is always worse, because the air outside, that's what you got inside too, and then you add to it all the toxins that you are producing. So the air outside is usually not worse. But of course, if you live on a road with a lot of traffic, you have the high traffic hour in the morning and you have the high traffic hour in the evening, then I would not just open the window at the high traffic hour. Wait when the traffic is the lowest and then open your windows, but open them because you have a worse air inside than what you have outside. You can also use house plants. House plants, yes, they can help us. You would have to have, though, quite a few plants in the house if you want to make sure that they produce enough good air, enough oxygen. But at least they will produce oxygen. But we need to remember one thing with the house plants. We should not have them in our bedroom, at least not during the night, because the photosynthesis only happens during the daytime and not during the nighttime. At nighttime, the plant will use up oxygen, so it will compete with us. And even cut flowers that have been taken to a hospital room, they still are alive and they will still use up oxygen. So we should always get flowers and plants, anything out of the room where we are going to sleep. Sleep with an open window. Now, you may say, well, I live in Florida. I've been there and it gets pretty hot and humid there in the summertime, and you don't want to sleep there with the window open. Fine. So don't open it all the way. Keep your air conditioning going, but keep it open a little bit so that you get some air flowing in. And if the temperature inside is lower than outside, if you just keep the window open a little bit like this, just maybe 2 inches or so, the cold air outside, the air outside will come in and will help us to renew the oxygen in the window, in the room. And let's say areas like the Northeast or the northern part of the United States where we have these harsh winters, you may say, well, we're losing a lot of heat if we keep open the window. Well, keep the window open just a little bit and let a little bit of air come in. But we should have the window open so that we renew the oxygen in our room because we do use it up. Then if you have air conditioners, these of course is like a one-room air conditioner. And remember, in this area up here, you can usually open this area and then you have a big, like a filter in there, a filter cloth. Now we want to clean that at least once per month, wash it out or renew it or whatever, but don't keep it in there too long because it will absorb the the dust from the air. It will catch the dust and then it will start to produce fungus and bacteria and all kinds of germs, and then the air will pick it up and it will blow it right back into your home, and you can quite contaminate your home. If you have these central air conditioners that are outside the building, well, then you need to clean it periodically. You cannot just keep using these equipments without cleaning because they will make you sick. They will contaminate your air. And then very often we find these kind of gas stove or whatever kind of heating appliances you have at home. Always make sure that you have an exhaust system there. We just moved into a home where we found 2 gas heaters, and they burn gas inside, and they were the only heating appliances in the whole house. And they burned the heat inside, and there was no exhaust system. So, of course, we decided to disconnect them and never use them because it is very toxic if you don't have an opportunity to suck out these these toxic gases from burning propane or natural gas or whatever. You got to have an exhaust system there. And then ban indoor smoking. Nobody should be smoking indoors because the cold smoke, we all know, is worse than the hot smoke. So the secondhand smoke is worse than the smoke than the smoke that the smoker gets. So we don't want to get hurt more than the person that is smoking. Let's ban smoking indoor. We should just not tolerate it. And then we can protect ourselves again with the right foods. But not only fruits. Let's use fruits and vegetables. Vegetables are even more important still than the fruits because they have a lot of vitamins and enzymes and protective antioxidants. Now, we have hindrances of oxygen. There might not come enough oxygen into our body. Let's see what we need to look out for. Here we got again the high-fat diet. Remember, the high-fat diet was producing cancer also, right? Now here we have the high-fat diet. If you eat free fat, fat that will be digested in the upper part of your intestinal tract, if you eat that, that fat goes directly into our bloodstreams. I explained that already in the lecture on nutrition. And if that fat gets into the bloodstreams, look here, what it's going to do is, here we got all our red blood cells nicely separated, and here we got them all stuck together. Now, the red blood cells, even though they move with a tremendous speed, they will not touch each other because they all have the same negative charge and same polarity will reject each other. But now you get the fat into your bloodstream and it will settle around your red blood cells and it will insulate them, and then the electricity, the electric charge cannot come through anymore, and now they suddenly all start to stick together. Now if you have your blood stuck together like this here, there are two reasons why it cannot transport the oxygen. First, it cannot pick up the oxygen because it is not stuck together edge to edge. It's stuck together like side to side, like a roll of pennies. That's how they would stick together. So there's really very, very little surface where they would be able to absorb oxygen. So this kind of blood cannot absorb the oxygen. And then the other problem that we have is that we have between 60 and 100,000 different individual body cells in our body, and to each cell goes a narrow little capillary. These capillaries have only about 3 to 3.5 micron of a diameter. But the red blood cell has 7 microns of diameter. So it is twice as big as that capillary where it has to get through. So it has to really squeeze through the capillary to get to the individual cell to deliver the oxygen there. And of course, if we got them all stuck together, there's no way that they will get through there. And so we will have at the end a lack of oxygen in our body. Then smoking. Smoker lungs, of course, they get destroyed. They do not have the capacity anymore to exchange gas, oxygen, and carbon dioxide with the blood. So that will definitely reduce our absorption of alcohol, of oxygen if we smoke. Then alcohol is also a problem for us because it depresses our breathing. Alcohol is like something that will calm you down, and so it will calm down the rhythm of your breathing. But not only that, it will also impair our circulation. So the circulation will not be very good. So these substances will definitely impair a good absorption of oxygen, or distribution, should I better say, of oxygen in the body. And then also we are dehydrated. A lot of people nowadays are dehydrated because they don't drink enough water. Remember, we're supposed to drink 1 quart of water for every 45 pounds of body weight. Well, some people drink 2 or 3 glasses of water a day, and that's not enough, and then they get very thick blood. And very thick blood does not circulate very well in our body, and so dehydration will contribute to a bad distribution of oxygen in our body. And then also we use tight clothing, maybe around here, or maybe like the ladies use these very tight pants. It impairs the circulation, ladies. And some use these girdles so that you don't see these firestones that they have sometimes. So, we need to be careful with all these things, because it might look good, but it's not good for our health. We need to be healthy first. And then, of course, a bad posture is also bad. I just this morning saw somebody, a young man. He was in his early 20s and doing a lot of exercise. And when I looked at his blood, I saw that he has a tremendous lack of oxygen in his blood. And I couldn't understand that. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't understand it. And then when he walked away, I could see that he was walking like this. So I called him back. I said, young man, come here a minute. You know what? When I saw your blood, I wonder why you had so little oxygen in your blood. And well, here is the reason. You are restricting the area of your lungs. If I walk like this, then I can't breathe in because there's no space for my lungs. So a bad posture is terrible for a good oxygen absorption. And then incorrect breathing is also a problem. Have you ever seen a baby breathing? A baby that breathes normally, it breathes with its abdomen, which means when it breathes in, the stomach comes out, it's pushed out to give more space to the expansion of the lungs, and then when it exhales, it pulls the stomach in and presses the air out again. So that's how we should be breathing. But we usually breathe very superficially. And the reason is that we have a lung capacity that's normally 5 times as big as what we need. And so we're too lazy to use it all. We breathe very superficially, and then we don't get enough oxygen into our system. This here is the movement that it should do. See, that's how we should be breathing. And then we should remember to take once in a while oxygen breaks, especially in the morning when we get up. Remember, when we spoke about the water, I told you first thing you should be doing is drink 2 glasses, big glasses of warm water. But you should also in the morning take some real deep breaths of air, and hopefully with the open window. So get some air into it. And then if you are, for example, tired while you are driving, start to do some breathing exercises. Breathe in deeply and push out your stomach and breathe in really deep, and it will refresh you. It will give you more oxygen and more energy. And also during the time that you're sitting in the office, work for an hour or so, and then get up and just get up and go to the door, to the window, and get a little bit of oxygen. Even if you do it every 2 hours, it's better than not doing it at all. But let's get some oxygen breaks. We need it because we always have usually have lack of oxygen. Then singing or playing an instrument is a wonderful way to increase our oxygen in our body because it will help us to breathe in much deeper. Now, if we use fresh air and sunshine and exercise all at the same time, remember, we already spoke about exercise as a wonderful remedy against a lot of different diseases and health problems. We spoke about sunshine also being a fantastic remedy against all kinds of different health problems and even some chronic diseases. And now we got the fresh air, which also is a wonderful remedy. Now, if we combine all these things together, then we're really getting a fantastic benefit there. We could do exercise out in the sunshine and getting some fresh air too. And that would really help us. And you know, that's why I always say doing exercise in a gym in the winter, it's fine. Or in a tropical area in the summer, it's too hot and humid, it's fine. But if the weather is okay, do your exercise outside because you get the benefits of fresh air, sunshine, and exercise at the same time. I would definitely recommend that to you, and it's the best thing that you can do for your health. And then, if you can manage to escape on the weekends or at least for your vacations or whatever, go out to the beach, go out to the countryside and get some fresh air and some sunshine and some physical activity. And He has made the earth by His power. He has established the world by His wisdom. He makes the lightning for the rain, and He brings winds out of His treasury. So the wind, the fresh air, comes out of God's treasury, according to Jeremiah 10, 12, and 13. Chapter 10, verse 12 and 13. So please, let's take advantage of the good, fresh air. Well, not so good fresh air anymore, but it's still the best that we can get. We can't make it any better. And I would say that you should really think about it and try to get yourself out to do the right thing. Go outside, do exercise, and get some sunshine and get some fresh air, and you will feel better. There is no doubt about it, and I wish you to be of wonderful health. Thank you.